Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Canada. Well, this is not Canada, but welcome to the Canada unit. You guys did your Latin America history test last week. It was also, we didn't do any YouTube videos because it was parent conference week last week as well. Well, those are both gone. So now we are back to YouTube videos, and because I know how much you love it, guess what? Multiple YouTube videos on one module, because that's how much I care. That's how much I know you love it. And by the way, I know you'd throw things at me if you could, but you can't. So, hey, such is life. So, let's go ahead. Let's do the vocabulary in this video. In the other videos, they will focus on Canada geography and how to label our Canada maps. All right? Let's get started. Province. A province is like saying the word state. All right? So, a province is just another name for a state. So, think about the USA. The USA is one country that's broken up into 50 sections that are called states. And each state has their own capital. And that capital's government can pass laws that only affect that state. So think about it. Georgia, which is one of those states, obviously, Georgia's capital is in Atlanta. And the government in Atlanta can pass laws that only affect the state of Georgia. Province, same way. So Canada, which is the country that borders the USA to the north, Canada is broken up into sections. They're broken up into 10 provinces and 3 territories. Each province has its own capital and has its own government that can pass laws that only affect that province. Notice it's the exact same thing, just with a different name. In the USA, we call that a state. In Canada, it's called a province. Now, you notice I said Canada is broken up into 10 provinces and 3 territories. So what's a territory? Well, a territory has a very small population due to the climate in those territories. And because they have a small population, they have a capital, they have a government, but that government cannot pass any laws. Whereas in a province has a capital and has a government, but that government can pass laws that affect the province. The territory cannot pass laws. The only laws that can be passed are going to be passed in the central government. And the central government of Canada is Ottawa. Ottawa is the capital of all of Canada. So if Ottawa passes a law, that's what affects the territories, but the territories cannot pass any laws on their own. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I'm on conference with me. Hydroelectricity, all right? Think about the word hydro. Hydro means water. So there's fire hydrants in your neighborhood in case the fire department has to come. There's also, think about it like this. If someone has played out in the sun too much and they haven't drunk any water, what do we say? Hey, be careful. You don't want to get dehydrated. So hydro is water. I'm hoping you know what electricity is by now. So what is hydroelectricity? It's the creation of electricity from the energy that comes from flowing water. And that flowing water is what we call a river. So the creation of electricity from the energy from flowing water is called hydroelectricity. We'll get into how dams work in Canada in a different video, but dams are what are used to create hydroelectricity. Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains, they are out west. They're in the western part of North America, so they are going to be in the western part of Canada, going through the western part of the United States. The Rocky Mountains is the longest mountain range in North America and the third longest mountain range on the planet. So Rocky Mountains, if you want to think about, well, where is it? If you start at the north end of British Columbia is a province in Canada. You're going to see the Rocky Mountains go down through the western part of Canada into the United States. It's going to go through states like Colorado, Wyoming, Colorado, and basically it's going to stop right at the northern end of New Mexico. And yes, I did forget a couple states in there because I wasn't trying to do every state or every province for that matter. But it's going to start at the north end of British Columbia. You're going to see it go all the way down south to the north end of New Mexico. The Rocky Mountains. The Great Lakes. So the Great Lakes, those are 5 lakes. I'm going to get into more detail on the Great Lakes in a different video, but what you need to know now is there are 5 lakes. They are the largest group of freshwater lakes in the world. So, the largest group of freshwater lakes in the world, the Great Lakes, there's 5 of them. they also make up the border between Canada and the United States. Tundra. As I said before, we'll go into more detail later. Tundra. So if you remember, we talked about tundra when we learned about Russia. So it's been a while. So what is tundra? Tundra is where you have a treeless plain that borders the Arctic. And it also has permafrost. Remember when we talked about permafrost? Permafrost is permanently frozen soil. So that's why you don't have any trees, because the permafrost, it kind of melts on the top, the little top layer, but once you get down, it's just ice. So there's no way to drive roots down into that ice. So that's why if you look at a tundra, it's just moss and little shrubs. So that's why we say it's a treeless plain that's bordered up to the Arctic. All right, that's a tundra. Canadian prairies. These are prairies in Canada, but what is a prairie? Okay, think of a prairie. Prairies are going to be normally flat. They tend to be treeless. There's very few trees, but tall grass. So we're talking about a plain of tall grass. I hope that makes sense, and not an airplane, by the way, right? So Canadian prairies, think of flat, mostly treeless plains that just have lots of tall grass. If you ever think about the song Amber Waves of Grain, obviously we're talking, that's farming. But the idea that you have this tall grasslands, just kind of flat, that's a prairie, right? Not the best description of a prairie. Lots of people who can give you a better description of a prairie in terms of its beauty, but you just need to know. Flat, mostly treeless, with tall grass. That's a prairie. Forget the amber waves of grain part, because that would be a farm. So Mr. McGee gets a strike for bad description. All right, so Canadian Shield. The Canadian Shield, you will see this again, kind of like Great Lakes in Rocky Mountains, where we'll talk a little bit. Sorry, hydroelectricity. Great Lakes we'll talk in more detail. Canadian Shield. So the Canadian Shield, this is going to be this unbelievable area, this unbelievably large area in Canada where it has exposed rock that has a lot of minerals and a lot of metals that allow Canada to be one of the largest mining countries, M-I-N-I-N-G, mining countries in the world, because there's so many different metals, so many different minerals that they can mine and sell around the globe. But we call that area where they do a lot of that mining, we call it the Canadian Shield. So, those are your vocabulary words. I hope that made sense. If it didn't make sense, like Mr. McGee's really long description of Canadian prairies that needs some work, if any of that did not make sense, conference with me, because I'll be on conference, and we'll talk about it and make sure that it all makes sense. Okay? Take care, guys. Let me know if you need anything.